This is my piece in the member show, and it's called Tech Niagara Junior. I work in collage and assemblage and found objects. So this piece is kind of taking that to an extreme. The work is always small scale, very diminutive in size, and the materials that I look for to use are also of that similar scale. So this particular piece was created for a installation done by Colleen Taldano for proximity. For neighborhood, for playground. And so what she had done is she created a 1/8 scale version of the Birchfield Penny Art Center that was covered in AstroTurf. She also recreated the installations inside of the museum the way that they were exactly when the museum closed down in March. And then she invited a number of colleagues and artists to create small pieces to a 1/8 scale that would be located on the second floor gallery for a show that she called Minutia. So what I did, and it was an interesting challenge because this was an opportunity to actually make a small scale version of one of my own pieces. So this is called Tech Niagara Junior because this is a small scale version of a piece that's called Tech Niagara. So this particular piece, it's a 1/8 scale version of it. This particular piece was created for an exhibition that was done at UB that was called From Cradle to Grave. And what they did is they had artists have access to materials for their instructional resources department that was being discarded, and slides, different apparatus and devices that were no longer being used. So this actually is made out of parts of a printer. So there are parts that are from the base of the printer, computer parts, and the theme of it is Niagara Falls. So there's a slide of Niagara Falls, kind of suggests the cascade of the falls coming down, and then there are 3 small rocks that are from the falls. So From Cradle to Grave was a way of using material, including slides. They were instructional slides, which of course now have been scanned and are used by instructors that way. But it was a way of actually reusing and giving new life to material that essentially had outlived its usefulness. So what I did, as a challenge to make this piece for Colleen's installation, was to select one of my pieces and then go back to the materials. Whenever I'm making something, I always keep the remaining material that is left from it. They might be fragments, small pieces, because I never know whether that might be incorporated into an assemblage at some later point. So I was able to go back and find those pieces. And then again, the challenge was to, I'll take off the top here, was to make it in such a scale so that it represented what I had done before. What you see there is a slide of Niagara, well, it's actually a miniature, so 1/8 scale version of a slide of Niagara Falls, which was handmade by scanning and then reducing down the size of the slide. And then it has, again, similar situation where it cascades down and you have little stones from the falls. So to make it complete, she had made the pedestal for the installation that it was part of. So I asked her if I could have that. And then, of course, I made a miniature small label that would be appropriate scale-wise to the particular piece. So I'm actually really pleased with the fact that, obviously the scale and the proportion of the pedestal that it's on is pretty much mimics the scale and proportion of the piece itself. Why it's under a glass dome. So this suggests to me and sort of recalls the early roots of museums, which are the cabinets of curiosity, which might be the odd sort of things that could be, well, they could be interesting animal specimens or minerals or something from at the turn of the century. What was done is that these were things that were exotic and you would have them in your home and it would be called a cabinet of curiosity. And so the dome kind of reinforces that concept of the preciousness of it, that you really can't get right on top of it. You have to actually see it preserved, kind of edified and rarefied because of this presentation for it. So it was an interesting challenge, and actually may spark a different, somewhat a new direction of my work, because coming out of the museum field, being a museum curator for a long period of time and now an independent curator, I'm interested in the museological aspects of art and how we experience art, how we see it, how it is given status or elevated. I guess you could even go back to, when you talk about Duchamp's urinal, how taking that as a found object and then taking it out of the context of where you normally would find it, but putting it in a museum, in a gallery on top of a pedestal, all of a sudden then it becomes a sculpture, it becomes a work of art. So yeah, it was a real pleasure to do this, and this was a challenge, and it was also interesting happening during the COVID-19 pandemic. It was a way to create focus and to create a project and something for me to do to kind of push the limits of what I had done before in the miniaturization, the small scale of my work, but adding that additional layer of how something like that is presented in a museum or a gallery setting. So that's Tech Niagara, and my titles often have a pun on. It's Niagara Tech, obviously technology, and then it's named Junior, because it's a small scale version of the other one. But I also happen to be Junior. So that's it. Tech Niagara Junior, my piece for the Almost Members exhibition.